This is the Big Chat Small Talk podcast for dynamic, engaged minds who love thought-provoking discussions about big life challenges in an approachable way. Join me, Vernie Bennett,
and me, Louise Anderson, to challenge your own perspective, to share insights and wisdom on navigating life's demands. Let us have a big chat about important issues in a small talk way.
Till death do us part. For many couples, marriage is seen as something that only death can part. But in recent years, we have seen the rise of divorces, separations, and an increase in cohabiting families. Even strong couples who weren't facing problems before the pandemic and who managed to avoid major shifts in the household during this time have fallen susceptible to breakup. So I should first say that this is about marital breakup. And the question is, are we too quick to jump ship? Louise.
Over to me. Okay, so for our audience out there, I have actually recently left my long-term, want for a better word, matrimonial relationship. It's been about 2 years now since our separation, and I'm going through the formalities of that, the legal formalities, so divorce, dissolution. And I have to say, I wasn't too quick to jump.
Right.
And I do have a very traditional outlook when it comes to marriage and relationships. I am still a believer that if you can do it till death do us part, then work towards that. But the reality of the situation is sometimes it's just not working. And
Right.
you have to make a decision for yourself, for your own happiness, for the happiness of your family. Because if you try to stay in something that's not working and has become really unhelpful, unhealthy, toxic, shall we say, that's not going to help you, not going to help the other person, and it's certainly not going to be nice for the children.
So I don't quite know what the statistics are or what the research says, but I know we look at traditional families back in the day, my mum and dad, their grandparents, it was till death do us part.
Well, monogamy had a different meaning back then as well. You know, monogamy was one person for life. Monogamy today is one person at a time. So I think that's got a bit to do with it too.
Yeah, that's another way of looking at it, isn't it? It's that fast life, fast pace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm like I said, I'm really quite traditional. So to me, it is till death do us part, even if I have to kill you. We're together until the last days.
Hubby, be warned.
Be warned. Be warned. I'm not letting you go. But yeah, I do think sometimes that couples are a lot quicker to jump. I know you're saying you weren't, but there are so many different mechanisms that you could or should consider before making that jump, which is counselling. I think I spoke to you about how me and my hubby deal with
your conflicts.
Issues, our conflicts. Because I'm not one to be face to face and go at it with the argument. It'll be a case of if I'm upset, he'll be very much, if I get an email tomorrow, I'm in trouble.
Does he know you're upset though? Does he pick up on the fact that there may be an email?
Quiet.
Okay.
I'm really, really quiet. If I'm not happy about something, I'm not very verbal.
You need to stew, don't you?
I don't like the conflict. And sometimes I think, and it works for us at the minute, whereby I will literally go to my room and I'll write a really long email and it will say everything I want to say in the right way as well. Because sometimes when you speak, you say things to hurt. But when you're writing it, you take that out, you edit, you reconstruct, and then you go,
review.
Absolutely. The next morning
and you
before
again,
it
before send.
Yes. And that gives me an opportunity to really analyse, why do I feel the way I do? And why am I so mad? I really do. By the time I've sent that, then he knows I've really thought about that. And then he'll respond by email. And then after that, then we'll actually talk. And by that time, we've actually gotten rid of the really angry bits and gotten to the resolution bits. And I don't know if couples are really doing that, whether it's with a counsellor or how do you attack those moments?
Well, this is the thing, I think, with a lot of relationships is that couples, conflict, like fighting, it's another kind of language. You know, we've heard a lot about love language. I think it's Gary Chapman's 5 love languages. And what's that? That's acts of service, gifts, personal touch, quality time, and what's the other one? I can't remember off the top of my head, but let's not worry about it. But anyway, there's 5. And affirmations, that's it.
Okay.
So we have to learn as couples, you have to learn one another's love language, but at the same time, you have to learn how one another fights. And I think when people think of fighting, they think of 2 people going at it at one another, but it's not. It's about dealing with conflict. And unfortunately, you can't avoid conflict.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a bigger conflict avoider. I know that I am, and I've had to work very hard in dealing with conflict. But I think if couples are not dealing with that conflict and they're letting it build, one of the biggest killers for most relationships is not the obvious stuff like, and I'm not taking anything away from like abuse and infidelity and things like that, but one of the biggest killers of relationships and the connection between a couple is resentment. And that resentment,
letting something simmer for too long.
And letting it build. And I can say from my own experience, there was a lot of resentment. And by the time we got to the stage where we just felt broken, it was just too late. It was too late to deal with the conflict from 5 years ago that didn't get resolved properly. It was too late to talk through the issues from 10 years ago that never got resolved properly.
No, I don't do that.
Nah.
Deal with it. 24 hours, 48 at max. Mm-hmm. If I'm at 48 hours, it's real serious. It's real serious. Like I've had to review. We don't want to do that. But no. So the one thing that has become really quite clear, especially in statistics, is that women are the ones that initiate the divorce. In your case, that was you as well.
Yes.
Why?
We'll initiate the separation, definitely.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm a female in my 40s, and those statistics suggest as well that the majority of women who initiate separation or divorce happen to be between the ages of 45 and 49.
Yes.
Now, some studies are beginning to say that there's a hormonal connection here. So if those of you, unless you've been living under a rock, but women, once they enter their 40s, tend to enter the premenopausal stage, and that affects the hormones. So first of all, it's your estrogen levels start to reduce, the progesterone as well starts to reduce, and that can have effect on your mental health, your levels of anxiety, your everything. And, naturally as women as well, we're very altruistic, we're nurturers, we put our families first. And there is something that starts to happen, they say, when it comes to the hormones, that you start to become more self-aware and you start to think to yourself, what's going on with myself? I'm not taking away anything from that, but I also like to think as well that women enter a certain stage of their life and they have a bit of an awakening too.
Okay.
Yes, like in my sense.
Like what you had.
What I had, a bit of an awakening. And some may call it a midlife crisis. Who knows?
Right.
I'm sure there are studies going on about it right now. But I think what happens as well, and I think this is a generational thing too, and it's funny that you mentioned earlier about the 48 hours, then it's serious.
Yeah.
Our grandparents' generation, for example, and even our parents would used to say, you never go to bed on an argument.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
You never go to bed on an argument.
And I think that's really important.
Very important.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I think with women, because of all the changes that have happened in society and, the economical status of women have changed.
But that's another reason why I think women jump quicker, because they feel they're a lot more stable.
Mm-hmm.
There are pros and cons, because obviously I do, when I look at my daughter, I'm like, I want you to do X, Y, and Z so that you can look after yourself. But that feminist argument is what is also a problem within a marriage, that you're not looking to each other anymore. You're going, me as myself, I can do what I want to do. I can look after myself. I don't need you. Rather than going, we need each other. Stop looking at self and look at how can we build together.
That's very true.
Yeah.
But then it could also be like some women are awakening in their 40s, say for, argument's sake, and looking around and thinking, I don't just have 2 children, I've got 3. 2 I gave birth to and 1 I tied myself to legally. And I don't want to do that anymore. I think there's a lot to say as well. I think with women becoming more economically independent.
Yeah.
So we do have more choice. In our grandparents' era, women were less so. So there wasn't that choice. And so you were probably forced to try and make it work. And they were
it was frowned upon, isn't it? If we look traditionally and sometimes culturally as well, the idea of a separation, the idea of a divorce is just a big fat no-no. But today, Western society, everyone's doing it. It's almost like it's so outdated to even get married. It's odd.
It's odd. But also nowadays, people enter into relationships for love. Like there has to be connection. Marriage, when you think about it, pre-20th century was an economical arrangement, especially mainly for women. And it was to also ensure the succession of the paternal bloodline.
Yeah.
So, infidelity, the fidelity of the wife was more important than the fidelity of the husband to ensure the paternal bloodline. Come past the 20th century, more and more people are marrying for love. Women have also, experienced the emancipation, more financially independent. So why are people marrying now? People are marrying for connection, companionship, friendship. Women are less dependent on men financially. So what do they want more from their partner? They want them to be emotionally available.
Oh, dear.
Be my best friend. Let's talk about our emotions.
But all of that is good, though.
It's all good.
But it's got to be grounded in something a little bit more than that, because,
the practicalities.
the practicality of life, sex isn't everything. Sex is part of making a family. Sex is part of connecting with your partner. But you get old, and I think the sex life starts to become a little bit less. But even though it's a bit less, it's the connection, the initial connection, the friendship and the bonds that you actually make between your partner. That's what takes you through the rest of life.
And just to pick up on that word, the bond. So more now than ever within this last generation, that bond, that connection, the success of a family is now based on the bond and connection between two people.
Yeah.
And this is also deriving from that kind of nuclear model as well. Whereas a marriage before, especially when you lived in a more community-based society, the dependency of a family was based on not only just a marriage between two people, but the community that they were also living in as well. I think the face and the format of marriage has changed a lot because it has to reflect, I suppose, the sense and sensibilities of society. But to go back to the question about women, especially initiate, the group proportion in terms of initiating, I think there is something going on. There's a wider discussion here. There is definitely something going on, and I look forward to getting into weeds about it.
I do too. I will say though, before we end, that, because we really do, and most people, when they talk about marriage, focus on the woman, but there is something to be said about how it affects men as well.
Absolutely.
And that at the point in which, because I looked at the statistics, at the point in which marriage is being initiated by women, suicide rates for men is quite high. I don't know if there is a causal link between divorce and suicide, but it is quite worrying, the fact that, that is on the rise at the same point. So these are breaking points for both parties, not just for the women. So I would like to really see, I think we'll try and leave a couple of links down below for anyone going through a breakup, and hopefully that can help.
Brilliant. Yes.
Thanks for listening to the Big Chat Small Talk with Vernie and Louise.
Follow us on Instagram at Big Chat Small Talk.